You're listening to the Prosperity Report Love and Money podcast. Find out what every couple needs to become a winning team in love and money. We bring you actionable ideas from expert therapists and experienced married couples, helping you stay happily married longer. Stay tuned until the end. We'll leave you with a tip you can start using today in our 5-minute activation segment. Now here's your host, best-selling author, speaker, and psychotherapist, Khary Lewis.
This episode is brought to you by Prosperity Club. Hey, Prospros. If you're not a Prosperity Pro just yet and you'd like to be, listen to the end and I'll tell you how to join. Because let's face it, it takes two powerful people to become a power couple. Do you aspire to have a happy marriage with plenty of love and money? Then I'll show you how to discover your idea of prosperity and understand yourself in love, life, and money. But first, let's get into this episode. And don't forget to listen all the way to the end for our 5-minute activation. I'll tell you how to find your answers to a question I'm thinking you've been asking yourself. But here's the question for you. Does love hurt? Well, it did for this couple the first time around. And despite the pain of their short marriage and divorce, they decided to get married again. Khary Lewis talks about the pain and the power in marriage and why he decided to marry the same woman a second time. Khary will also tell us how he and his wife decided to give up their cushy jobs in Chicago, take pay cuts, and move to North Carolina to shed the old and start over new. Now, this episode is not a fairy tale. It's kind of like The Notebook. It's a little tumultuous, but I can't wait to talk to our guest. So join me in welcoming our guest today, Khary Lewis. Hey, Khary.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be a part of the show and been looking forward to this here and talk about, as I like to put it, our adventure.
Right. It's good because you'll show people that it's not always a fairy tale. Sometimes it's a drama or, like you said, an adventure. I like that even better.
It's like a vacation. Everything doesn't go the way you want it to be. There's some bumps in the road, but, ultimately the goal is to relax and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is the Love and Money podcast, I start every episode with one question, and that is, what is your idea of prosperity?
My idea of prosperity is having the funding to fund your dreams and is to help others as well, not just to get by, but any help you be able to give to others, or if you have an idea or a dream, to be able to fund that and not let that be the roadblock to following those dreams. So that's, I guess, what prosperity would, in a nutshell, mean to me. Being able to fund your dreams and to help others, as see fit. So a lot of people, myself included, get a big benefit out of helping others when you're able.
Absolutely, I do too. So what I hear you saying is that your idea of prosperity is not letting money get in the way. You could still do all the things you want to do, especially those things that you dream about, and then you can help others.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that's so good. From there, I just want to get right into your story. Like you said, it's so juicy. It's such an adventure. I think the first question I have is, when did you know that it was time to remarry your wife?
We split and divorced, got into other relationship. During that time, we were apart 3.5, almost 4 years. As far as when did I know it was time to get remarried, honestly, I never wanted to get divorced. I was stubborn. Honestly speaking, I thought that by delaying the divorce process, just either not showing up to court or, blowing off calls, that, we would go out and see what the world had to offer us, however, and then come back together, later on, however. But she was serious about it, and we split, but I didn't want to not be married. But circling back to the question, when did I know back? When we had gotten back together, or initially just started dating each other again, I thought about why we had gotten married in the first place. And I waited quite some time to get married beforehand. And she was the first woman that I knew that was it. And so knowing that, having that, losing that, and then regaining that, I was ready for some time, but we did wait some time to get remarried again, but I'd already known it though. So.
And that was kind of different because if I remember correctly, in the beginning, you guys moved really fast the first time. You didn't wait.
We did. Yes, we did. In my dating life, I've never been around somebody every day. I was in a relationship before her. I won and off for about almost close to a decade. And I had spent more time with her in 6 months than I had spent with this person in 10 years. So it was fast. We didn't get married in 6 months, but we did, our relationship did move fast, but it was just somebody who was just natural feeling, somebody that I enjoyed being with every day. But before I go by what my father always told me, a man always has something to do. Whether you're doing it or not, you always got something to do. So I constantly kept myself busy. My mind frame was I don't have time to be in somebody's face all day, every day. I got other stuff to do. Right. This is somebody that I was willing to do that with.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. So that brings me to another question about what's different? Like, what's different the second time around?
Us being good friends, that I was a hothead. I'm not to go off so much off the astrological signs, but I am a complete Scorpio. I'm a huge duffel bag of highs and lows. And she was the first person that got me to calm down. And after our relationship, it had ended, after our marriage had ended, I became a different person in a good way. But I missed having that person that helped me to change. Second time around, what's different is we're quicker to identify things that didn't work in the beginning. Doesn't say that we don't have faults, not to say that we don't encounter some of the same problems, but we know how to deal with them differently because we know this time we don't have to be psychic. We know what the end result will be if we don't take care of them.
Right.
So it's just more of a consciousness of how we handle things.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So I think what I hear you saying is, I think you said it really well. I'm just reiterating it, but that you now know what the end result is. If I don't take care of this, if I keep doing what I'm doing, then I'll end up in a place that I don't want to end up. And you say that now, but I know so many couples, and in my office, I work with so many couples who are not willing to just see what the road will be if they keep doing what they're doing. That whole doing the same thing, expecting a different result, that happens a lot with couples. And it's so awesome that you, especially getting a second chance, recognize that, oh, I'm doing that thing that I was doing before that ended me in divorce, and I don't want that to happen. So let me do something different, whatever that may be. And you might not even know what that is yet, but you know that what you're doing is not it.
Exactly. When you know what the result will be or has become before, you're a little bit more conscious of that. Like you said, I don't have all the answers. She doesn't have all the answers. But like I say, I know what the result has been before, and I don't want to go down that particular path. But like you said, the definition of insanity, you got to do something different. We recognize that, and when we're getting too far or exhibiting some of the same behaviors, and what's reciprocated back to me or back to her is, if you do this, I'm going to give you this type of attitude or I'm going to feel this type of way. We, think about it, talk about it and say, okay, we've been down this road before. This doesn't work. So we got to do something different. We got to find a different way.
Right. You talked about you being a Scorpio, and I don't remember what sign he is, but I know only a few people can handle Scorpios. So she has to be sort of strong herself.
Oh, she's a Leo. So
Leo, yeah. And so
stubborn leaders.
Right. So he has to be pretty strong, pretty stubborn, and almost kind of hot-head to handle somebody as wild as you can be. Would you agree?
I will 100% agree. Definitely. Like I said, we got to a point in our relationship where, as opposed to not blowing up on her, but just like I said, I'm a mixed bag of highs and lows, and me getting so hyped up or upset about things or flying off the handle, I calmed down and she helped calm. But it took somebody who is just the same to make me see that and turn that around and say, okay, let me chill. And also, not knocking against my wife, but sometimes I see how she may handle things and be like, okay, I used to be like that. So I'm more of a calmer person nowadays, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And that's pretty cool that I mean, probably some of that comes with age, of course, maturity, but it sounds like you learned from your mistakes. Like you told me in our pre-interview, you just kind of learn from your mistakes as you go.
Indeed.
Yeah, so learning from your mistakes and kind of seeing where those mistakes will end up, it sounds like that is what's contribute to the success the second time. Is there anything else that you would add or that you can think of that's contributed to?
Being a little bit more conscious of her feelings. There's a book, I've delved into this book before, about the love languages and how,
Hmm.
certain, people want to they interpret love different ways. So
Yeah.
I also had to realize that with my wife, I'm a verbal person more so. I'm physically affectionate, of course, too, but she is more of show me than tell me type person. So I had to
Okay.
recognize that what worked for me or what made me feel more loved didn't necessarily make her feel more loved. So I had to be conscious of what works for her or what makes her feel more loved.
Yeah, that the five love languages, it comes up a lot in these interviews because it is tried and true. You know, it just works to know how the person wants to be loved. And I've said before, there's the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated, but that only goes so far. And eventually you have to do the rule number two. That's what I call it, where that is treat people how they want to be treated. But it
Yeah,
takes
indeed.
some getting to know them. So it sounds like you guys have become even better friends and you've gotten to know your wife even better than you did the first time.
Yes, we definitely have gotten to know each other better. It can be an annoyance at time. When I say that, meaning that when somebody knows you and they know you well, even and
Yeah.
when they call you out on it, you tell, oh, you don't know me, and they do. You get
Right.
upset, but you get upset only because they are right. My
Yes,
wife will
the
tell me
truth
stuff
hurts.
about myself, and I'll tell her, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and that's not like this, and I'll admit to myself alone, of course, to myself, and say, damn, she's right. you know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but you're right. We get upset because the truth hurts and you hear it, especially if you're not ready for the truth and you're like, what? I'm not ready to handle that right now. I want to
Right.
stay the same. I'm not trying to grow right this second. Done enough growing. Grow is painful.
Exactly.
Yes. So I'm wondering what has been, okay, it's probably a two-part question. Like, what has been the hardest part, but what has been the easiest part of being married to the same person again? And I think you might have just mentioned one of them, but I'm wondering if there's like some parts that make it harder being married to the same person, and if there's some parts that make it easier being married to the same person.
The easier part is you all know each other. You think about why you fell in love, why you all got together, and why you're back in that particular position with each other or situation with each other.
Okay.
And on the reverse side of that is the same thing. The hardest part is you do know each other. There is a painful past, which I'll say as a guy, we're a bump and bruise, and a bump, bruise, and keep going.
Yeah.
Bruise yourself, get up, get over it. Hey, it happened. Let's get over and move on. And my father, well, I have the utmost respect for, told me a long time ago when we were getting back together. He said, "You do realize that you're going to have about 5-6 years of making up to do." And I told him, "Oh, pops, come on, man. I mean, I know she's upset and all this and that, but we're back together. We both made mistakes. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just her. It was both of us. But I think that maybe is the hardest part, is that the past does get brought up at different times, and you have to respect that. And a lot of times it's you may not be in the mood to hear that. I'll say myself, but sometimes I'm not in the mood to hear, well, oh, this about the past, or you did this, and this is acting like how, back in the day. And I don't, hey, we moved on. We've had a whole nother child and got remarried, moved states and all that since then. But I have to respect her feelings in regards to that. So one of the hardest things is having to rehash the past.
Right.
But it is necessary, though. I have to respect that because I still had gripes about the past at different times. For whatever reason, I may bring up and say something too, but you have to respect that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. So, lady listeners, know that men bruise and then they go on, like they walk with their bruises. But I think men, listeners, know that ladies, when they're bruised, they need to talk it out and bring it back up. And in order for them to heal, they need to get it out.
Yeah.
So, that might make it a little bit easier for couples, because another book that comes up a lot is men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And that's a language barrier when you're from two different places. And so men may not want to talk about it anymore. It's like, that's old, that's the past. And women may still want to talk about it. Not that they haven't forgiven you, as much as they're just still in the process of healing. And like your dad said, that takes time. If, his estimate was 5 years, if that's what she needs, that's what she needs. And if you love her, you can walk with her through that journey to healing.
Yes.
So that kind of brings me to forgiveness, because when you do have that backstory, that drama, that adventure, as you put it, and there are many couples who do, and you're not the first couple that I met who's remarried the same person. So what do you do about forgiveness? What has been your, your success story, or even maybe some failures around forgiveness?
Personally, it's more so knowing that everybody thinks about different situations. When you all were split, who they may have been talking to, all type of different things. How do they interact with this person, and do they do the same things, or go to the same places? You think about different things. But as far as forgiveness, mine is a little bit more unique, as far as that I had an illness, or have an illness, that thankfully has subsided. I didn't think I would still be here talking to anybody today. That helped me take things also, and not take things for granted, and realize some things that you hold on to, you're a prisoner of your own feelings. You're getting upset about them and steadily harping over things, or however, makes you a prisoner of that. So.
Yep. I've experienced that with patients, especially like around infidelity. And, in you guys' case, you did get a divorce. So if you saw other people and she saw other people, that wasn't infidelity, but there's still some harboring, feelings for that. Cause it's like, how could you love somebody else? You promised that love to me. And like you said, when you start looking at, you went to the same places we went to, it's like you kind of tarnish the part of your story, the love story. If you're doing the same things with a whole different person, you're like, wow, did I mean anything? And so you start creating this other drama in your head. Like in your head, you've got even more drama than what's really happening in real life. So forgiveness becomes even harder.
Yes, and like you say, you do create that, and then you start filling whatever there's blanks that you don't know. You fill in those blanks, and you creatively fill in those blanks, and which a lot of times is couldn't be further from what the actual truth is. But in your mind, that's what it is, because that's what you thought of, and that's what you thought, and that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes time, and the words that women need to heal are different from the words that men need to heal. Because I know when it comes to stuff like that, like another person, or especially in infidelity, men tend to say things like, she didn't mean anything to me, but that doesn't really work for women healing. It might work
Right.
for men if you're like, oh, he didn't mean anything to me, right? But that doesn't work for women, because they're like, wait a minute, she didn't even mean anything, and you took her to our favorite place.
Right.
Right. So it's like you have to really tread lightly and be careful. And you really don't know, when you're trying to get to that place of forgiveness, what is going to spark an argument or a setback. So you just have to trial and error, go through it and learn from your mistakes. I guess that's kind of the theme, is learning from your mistakes, or if you see them as mistakes.
Also, not being afraid to make mistakes. You're going to make
Oh,
mistakes. Nothing's going to be perfect. You can't go through it. And that was a problem before, walking around on eggshells, and till we talked, like, egos and feelings will be hurt at different times.
mhm.
We're bigger than that. So if that's something that you harp on, that'll hold you back.
That is so true. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And as a recovering perfectionist, sometimes because you don't want to make mistakes, you don't do anything at all, which can look like you don't care.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great point that you make. So hopefully somebody out there who's listening, who has gotten to that point where they're walking on eggshells and they're like, I just don't want to do anything, because no matter what I do is wrong. Because I know that it does feel like that sometimes, but trying it, just keep trying, because trying translates into love. Like, okay, well, you are trying, right? Not
Right.
immediately, but yeah. later. So I'm going to shift just a little bit and talk about, your move. You gave up your high paying job
Oh,
and
still stings a little, but yeah.
but you did it for a reason and you had a goal and a plan sort of in mind, and now you're kind of getting back on top where you were and feeling even better and having more control over your
Yes.
finances. Let's talk about that some.
Well, just let me go back a little bit further. I've lived all over. See, to show you, when I graduated from high school, I got a one-way ticket to New Haven, Connecticut from Chicago. Just left. Wrote my parents a letter, said thanks for food and shelter and the lessons, but I'm up. And been traveling all across the country, living in all type of different places since. I've had that, and I've always liked traveling. My wife is originally from Chicago, never lived anywhere else but Chicago. Traveled a lot of places, but never lived anywhere. And when we
Okay.
first met, I actually stopped her from moving. When we met, she was actually going to move by her father, not with her father, but by her father, like within 2 weeks after, we met. And I convinced her, I said, look, I don't know who I'm just meeting you, but I don't know what it is, something about you. You cannot move. I'm not letting you move. I need to see where this is going. And 3 kids later and whole state later, here we are. But I stopped her from doing that, and she always wanted to move. We made different plans to move different places during our marriage and didn't quite agree on those different places. So when we got back together, she let me know, look, I want to move.
Mm.
So, like I said, I've moved all over. So I had no problem with that. It was my first time moving with a family. I've always moved solo. So even if I
Yeah,
slept on somebody's couch for a week or two to get on my feet, that was never a problem. You can't do that with a family.
that's true.
So we did decide to move, and it was agreed on a place, which was Charlotte, and it was a good move. The only thing was my career had really taken off right before we moved. Our household was making money hand over fist, and I delayed our move by a year, even after we had our daughter. So we had our daughter, and we were going to move right away. And I was like, oh, let's wait. Money's going good. Let's just stack up. My excuse was, let's just stack up some more money. It's better if we wait. We'll move with more money, which
Hmm.
was half truth. Um,
Right.
so we did move, and it was a little bit of culture shock for my family. I'm used to the South, but it was different, especially when you've lived somewhere all your life. That's what you're used to, the ways of people, and
Hmm.
how that particular state works. However, we did move, and it was a lot different than the moves that I've made solo, and then financially, it was very. I see this emphasize it was a very humbling, a very financially humbling experience.
Yeah.
But as you said in the show, we've learned to get over that hump. I don't know. It actually kind of brought the whole family together closer, because things that we kind of coveted before and just had to have, or we just threw money at, we've looked at things and just said we just use money to make us happy, happy and things, when it was us that made each other happy, as opposed to,
Hmm.
that was just something to do with the money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool. And then I remember you saying that on the other side, now your spending is different because you were able to recognize that there were things that were just fluff, not substance.
It was a mixed blessing. A lot of things that when we look back, just to say, because we had a family member stay with us for a while, and things were really tight, but we worked it out, and it was also help on a family member out as well. And then we just got to looking at things, and like I said, things that we used to make us happy, or made us think that it made us happy, really didn't, and they were unnecessary. And after a while, I got to seeing doing without those particular things, we still were happy. So, in praise the Most High, as things increased here for us and money started going in an upward direction, we really didn't need those things or even want for those things, because we got back to thinking when we didn't have them, I mean, we were fine without them. So why are we worried about it now?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have this statement, money can buy happiness as long as you know what that is and you invest some of it in financial therapy. um, but really what I'm saying when I say that is, people say money can't buy happiness. I don't totally agree with that. I think there are some things, and I think what you said that is very fitting was that some of them did make you happy, but some of them didn't. And so
Right.
those that didn't, you didn't focus on those, you dropped those, you let those go. and you focus on the things that did make you happy, because it does take a certain amount of money to get some of those things you talked about in the beginning, your idea of prosperity. It
Right.
takes a certain amount of money to fund your dreams, and to give, to be able to give. And sure, you don't have to have a lot. It doesn't have to be billions, or, because millions that's not even sexy anymore. Now you got to have billions.
Right.
But you don't have to have millions, but there is a certain amount of money that you need to fund those dreams. And once you have that, then you don't necessarily have to keep growing. If you get more money, that's kind of like icing on the cake, but the cake is already made. Cake is already
Right.
there. Yeah. Or gravy, if you like steak, gravy on the steak, rather than icing. So you described your marriage as an adventure, and that sort of sounded to me like it was the past. I don't know if that's the way you describe it now. How do you describe your marriage now?
Still an adventure. It's always a work in progress.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I'm always learning something new about her, and she's always learning something new about me. And we take time to respect those differences between ourselves. We're not the same people. We're not supposed to be the same people. That's what attracts us to us in the first place. We're a lot of times I think people, when they get married, they try to merge or become one, or get frustrated when they're not, merged as one person. I guess in a sense you could say you're one person with two different sides. I mean, I guess you could put it maybe in that particular perspective, but you are individuals and you have to respect that individuality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important. And you come together, sure, because one of the things I say about this podcast and the Prosperity Club is that it's about powerful people coming together, bringing those two powers into one, kind of like the Wonder Twins, you kind of like that. So, but you have to be powerful yourself, build up yourself and have your individuality in order for that partnership to really be amazing.
Indeed. I think
Yeah.
something recently, not too distant past, but she and I, where we talked about who we were before we became married. The good parts, not necessarily things that you grow and matured from, but the good parts what attracted you to that particular person, and you have to respect, that's who that person still is to a degree. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you grow and you mature in a relationship, but you still, like I said, you still have to have your individual identity. And I think a lot of times, especially women may get away from that, may lose their identity in a relationship. And I could definitely understand how that may feel, that I'm still that person, we don't have to like everything that's still the same. We don't have to agree on everything. I'm an individual, I might like green, you might like red, and I don't have to like red, you don't have to like green, but I respect that that's what you like, and that I'm fine with that. I'm not going to dislike you for that. Just not my cup of tea per se, but I still want you.
Yeah, that's a great point, because that is something that I deal with couples sometimes, and that they do forget why they were attracted to the person, but also the person forgets how they were attractive. And so they stop dressing the way they used to dress, or doing the things because maybe the reason why you were attracted to her was because she was sexy, or you were attracted to her because she was ambitious, and now she sits on the couch. That's not sexy. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, you got to continue to be that person that you were to attract the person, but you also have to remember who you were attracted to and continue to see that. So that's really important. What I also heard you say is that you don't have to like the same things. And I know that you have some hobbies that she doesn't necessarily care for, but talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of couples think that you have to have everything in common. Now, values, absolutely. You need to be equally yoked emotionally and mentally and spiritually and that kind of thing. But you don't necessarily have to have everything in common, right? You can have your own hobbies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I do. I'm into what's the fish word they call it? I'm an aquarist. I'm really into fish tanks. However, it's something that over the years that has really calmed me down. I take instead of me having to be outside all the time or running around town, or however, a lot of times I'm right in my living room with my fish tanks and taking care of my fish and just relaxing in front of them. That's not something she necessarily enjoys. And one of the reasons being is just really quick. I had a huge fish jump out the tank one day, and in the middle of the night, she wound up stepping on this fish, which is like a famous story in our family. When people ask her about my hobby, that's the first thing she brings up. I spend a lot of time and effort, and I have spent, admittedly, a lot of money into this particular hobby, but it is something that I enjoyed and something I did with my father when I was young, and I've been blessed to experience that with
Ah,
my kids. So my kids and I, it's funny, he's doing the same thing that my father and I did, 35 years ago.
yeah.
And she has other hobby, like I said, yeah, I'm a people person. I love crowds and all that, but I'm kind of shy. She is a social butterfly, but she can't stand people. Not necessarily that she can't stand people, but that's not what she looks for. But people are just drawn to her and include her in things. For me, I want to be drawn to them. Hey, I want to be in them, and I eventually do. A lot of her hobbies as far as social groups, or she puts together different groups. Like she has a transplant group where we are now, with people that are new from Chicago or from different places that have come here, and she enjoys those things. But those are things I
Oh,
don't necessarily enjoy. And initially, when she told me about them, I kind of frowned on them, like, oh, that's lame. Well, why you want to do that? But then I thought about, that's not my cup of tea. But why am I going to knock her? Because that's something that she likes, and
right.
I use my hobby. I mean, she doesn't like fish, but here we are. I got my wife who, you know, most wives look at the house and see it decorated, and they do, or the main curator of the home, so to speak. And
Hmm.
here she is with a living room full of fish tanks. Looks like a shit aquarium. So,
Yeah.
it was a trade-off. I gotta relent to some things because she deals with my hobby.
Right. Absolutely. Exactly. I think you used the right word. I love it. It is a trade-off. And when you can accept the other person and their hobbies and their investments or whatever that may be, then it makes for a much happier marriage. So I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
One is you kind of alluded to it in your answer, and it is about the investment that goes into this hobby. How do you navigate having an expensive hobby, especially when your spouse is not into that and maybe they don't want to spend the money there, or they just, maybe want to have their own money equivalent to your money. So tell me about like maybe how you guys navigate that.
Well, thanks to the power of the internet and YouTube, I found a way to greatly reduce my hobby. um, just by DIY projects. And my hobby is one that I think everybody initially spends a lot of money on until you find out the different alternatives that you can use and not waste money on certain things. So my wife is a great researcher. So I'll say
Oh, okay.
he helped me research more things and find out you don't have to spend money on this, or you can do this yourself, or you can build this here. Or example, I had a tank that was leaking, and I needed to go spend. I'm about to go spend $300, $400 on a brand new fish tank. She showed me, you can reseal this tank yourself. You can go to Home Depot. You can spend $8 on some silicone. It's going to probably take you maybe about 5-6 man hours, and you can have it done to save yourself money. You can give that money to me. And that's exactly what happened.
Nice.
So
I
I got a
like it.
fish tank, and she got $300 to go do whatever she wanted to do.
Cool. Nice teamwork. Well, I do have one more question for you, and I want to remind you, listeners, to stay tuned to our 5 minute activation. But also, I want to remind you that now might be a good time for you to get involved in a marriage money mission. And our marriage money mission is all about determining how you want to earn, grow, protect, gift, and enjoy your money together as a family. So you should visit presidentiallifestyle.com for more information about that. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you another one of my famous questions, and that is, what is the best marriage advice you ever received, or the advice you wish someone would have told you?
Mine is not going to say necessarily unique, but I will say this. Mine is more for couples where there may be an age difference. We have an age difference of 7 years between us. The best marriage advice that I got, I actually can think of two really quick. The first was my father asked me, he said, "Are you ready to relive 7 years?" And when he first told me that, I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, there's a 7 year difference between you two. And a lot of things that you may have gone through and experienced and went through your bumps and bruises and learned from, she hasn't. In all fairness to her, you have to let her experience those bumps and bruises. You can tell her and try to help her avoid those, but sometimes
Mhm.
experience is the best teacher. So are you really prepared and ready to relive 7 years.
Wow.
And I falsely said yes the first time we got married because I didn't totally digest it or think it through, so to speak. But the second time, it really resonated here with me. I think the best marriage advice I get there is that if there is somewhat of an age difference, or not even an age difference, sometimes also if there's an experience difference, you have to be willing to let that person or to walk with them as they go on that particular journey. And you can't save everybody. You know, I can tell you that if you cross the street, that a car is going to come and clip your leg. But if you come to the street every time and you don't see a truck, you don't necessarily believe me. You may have to experience it for yourself. And hopefully you live through that experience, but you know, sometimes you have to.
Right.
And the second best marriage advice that I got was let your marriage be your marriage.
Yes.
Don't involve friends. Don't involve family. I mean, there's certain things. I'm sorry, you are going to talk to people about certain things, but when you put a negative spin on things or you're upset and you talk to people out of anger, you're allowing that other person to come up with and formulate their own opinion and verbally speak their opinion if they want to. And when you all are back fine and things are, you know, you're back to everything's back in good grace and you've got a great relationship and now they don't like your husband or they don't like your wife because you told them, they harbor those feelings. You created that hostile environment.
Yep.
I've learned the second go round, especially anything negative or however we go through, that is our business.
Yep. That is so true because they're not as in love with the person as you are. So they're not going to be as easy to forgive and they're protective of you.
Of course.
So, yeah. And so as much as you tell, they're going to keep all of those things unless they're a really forgiving person, which most human beings are not. But for those that are, they might be able to let go of it, but not everybody will let go of it. And so they're still holding on, looking at them with the side eye, like, I know what you did to my son or my brother or my best friend, you know? Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for all of your time. We are so grateful to hear your story, learn from some of those tips that you told and the ones that come from your father, because he has great advice. he gave me some advice years ago that I thought was crazy. And then the financial crisis came and I was like, oh, that's why he said that. Because he said he wouldn't do a loan, because at the time we were both in mortgages. He said that he wouldn't do a loan if somebody was not putting money down. So I was doing a lot of 100% financing back then. And he didn't like down me for doing it. He was just like, I wouldn't advise it. Like I wouldn't, if they don't have any skin in the game, like I just wouldn't do it. And this was like 2006 or so, when it was just so easy to get money. It was like 2005, 2006. And I was making money. So I was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, but this is working. I don't know what you're talking about. But sure enough, 3-4 years later, where the market crash, the real estate market crash, because of all of those 100% finances. And not just because of that, there were other reasons too, but it exacerbated it, because if that hadn't been happening, then people would have still had equity in their homes and they wouldn't have been having to lose so much. So yeah, he gave great advice. I didn't listen to it, but it was great advice.
Sound like my story of my life.
So, and then, like you said, learn from your mistakes. I know now when he says something, I know to listen.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, I thank you truly. This has been a pleasure for me, and talking about anything also helps as well. A lot of times you go through things and play things out of your mind, but verbally talking about them when someone else, puts the things in different perspectives as well. So I truly thank you for this opportunity.
Well, guys, that's our episode for today. But before we go to our 5-minute activation, I promised you I'd tell you how to become a prosperous couple. So as I said before, it takes 2 powerful people to become a power couple. And we'd love to have you and your partner join the Prosperity Club. Whether you want to start with the free version or jump right into the paid membership, it's a great value for your time and money. And it's really important that you both join, because they're questionnaires and things you're going to complete that you'll have the answers to. But what's awesome is that you can share it what your partner so that you guys can get to know each other better in love and money. So for just $97, you get the Prosperity Club annual membership. You get 5-day prosperity challenge. You'll get crash course in prosperity 7-day course. You'll also get the Prosperity Club monthly activities and accountability emails. And then you get the private Facebook group. So only the special insiders get special offers on the Prosperity Club membership and new courses that come out. So you've got to join the private Facebook group. So go to KeneQuarter.com/Facebook to join the private Facebook group, and then go to KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club to get your membership today. That's KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club. But all of that will be in the show notes. So go ahead and check them out, and I'll see you in the club. It's time for 5-minute activation, a quick financial therapy session to get you activated and on your way to increasing the love and money in your marriage. So can I get 5 minutes of your time? Just 5 minutes for a financial therapy activation. Prosperity means different things to different people. You've heard me ask the question on the show many times, but today it's your turn to answer. What's your idea of prosperity? For me, I use 3 words to describe my idea of prosperity: autonomy, generosity, and creativity. Think about your idea of prosperity. It probably has a financial component and an existential component to it, right? I've also found that it can be a combination of things, collectively between your head, your heart, and your gut. So your head's idea is to protect you. Your heart's idea is about pleasure, and your gut is seeking power or purpose. Usually, prosperity is a combination of these 3 ideas. So give it some thought now. How do you find power, peace, and pleasure? Because that's your idea of prosperity. For me, autonomy is power, creativity is pleasure, and generosity is peace. It feels so good when I get to share my gifts with the world. If you could combine the 3 ideas together, you will have your ultimate idea of prosperity. Now, can you sum it up in 3 words, your idea of prosperity, like I did? When you think about the best time in your life, or if you haven't experienced that just yet, think about the person you admire. What are their core values and activities? Maybe that could help you get to your idea of prosperity if you don't already know what it is. It could also help to look at your money mentality, because your money mentality is your money reality, and that usually is a reflection of your idea of prosperity. Now, I want you to remember, the further you are from your idea of prosperity, the closer you are to unhappiness. Finding what makes you happy is the easiest way to fulfill your idea of prosperity. That's what the Prosperity Club is all about, helping you find what truly makes you happy so that money can buy you happiness. How will you know when you've reached your idea of prosperity? Well, you know when you are living those 3 words that you came up with. When you're living that way, then you are prosperous. Millions of dollars don't necessarily make you prosperous, but if it's part of your idea, then go for it. You know, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. You can take people with you, and I'm taking you with me. And I encourage you to invite some friends. Ask your friends, what is their idea of prosperity? Not so you can copy or follow them, but just so that you guys can share in the journey together. Share this 5-minute activation with them and even join the Prosperity Club together. It's a great way to have support and accountability. So that's how you reach your idea of prosperity faster and know when you're there. Get a friend or a partner. Write down those 3 words. And once you have them, maybe even post them up so you can see them again and again. so that you'll know when you're living your idea of prosperity. So that is our 5-minute activation for today. I'm so excited that you're going to find your idea of prosperity and start living it today. And I'll see you at the top. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you want more love and money conversations, subscribe to this podcast. Also, tell your friends about us. I'll see you next episode. But in the meantime, head on over to presidentiallifestyle.com for more tips, tools, and resources. And go ahead and leave us a comment if you like. We'd love to hear from you. This show is not to replace professional counsel. The best advice comes from a professional you know. The topics discussed in this podcast are general in nature and are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to meet with a professional to discuss your specific situation, whether financial or therapeutic. That's all for now. I'll see you sooner. Remember, no matter what anybody ever tells you, you can have wealth in all of its forms. Believe it, and you will soon see it.